Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Does really help the channel out. We're smashing out subs at the minute, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. If you want to get involved, go and grab yourself some merch. The link is in the description to that. Become a member of the channel. We're doing a live stream next week. We'll have a bit of a chat, and we're going to give away an hoodie. That's a silent H if you're me. So if you want to do that, please, please, please become a member. Costs less than a coffee. Cheap darts. So let's get straight into the preview this week. Carlton versus North. It's an exciting game, isn't it? Because when you look at this game, probably when it was probably adjudicated, did you expect Carlton and North to be in the top 8 together? North have had a sensational start. 2 wins, 1 loss. Carlton 2 wins, 1 draw. It's going to be an exciting game on paper. They are expected to get LDU back, who wasn't here last week. But obviously, North Melbourne coming off the back of a very disappointing loss to Hawthorn, where Carlton, on the other hand, a very hard-fought, and I would dare say character building. I think a lot of people have really looked at the game that we had against GWS and probably gone a little bit overkill, if I'm honest. Do you know what I mean? These are the games Carlton lose 9 times out of 10 in years gone by. And I think the 3 games we've seen are games Carlton historically would have lost. The way I see it was 0 and 3 if we had the backbone and spine that we had last year. North Melbourne, they've come in amazingly, and a big part of their loss last week, even without LDU, was Hawthorn's ability to score from clearance. They were sensational. 30 points coming from there, from a team that was ranked near the bottom for that at the start of the game. And I know LDU wasn't there, but it's a big factor. Now, one of the factors I want you to really take into account is Carlton's transition game is definitely starting to get better. Their D50. Now, a lot of people have made, especially on the couch, this is a negative. Carlton's scores from turnover is going through the roof. And it's interesting to note that 2 of the 3 sides they've played are traditionally very high in defending that statistic. But this year as well, their scores from the defensive 50, the points sourced, Carlton are ranked in the top 10 for that. They are really starting to improve. Just under 3 deficiency, which is pretty good because the sides we've played have got 2 of the lowest. Well, it's the 3 of the bottom 5, the lowest scores against in that department. GWS only conceding 25 in that avenue. Geelong 32, even though they're cooped. And Richmond, as we know, generally do defend this well with their outs, albeit Collingwood putting on the majority of these, 35. And it is really interesting that Carlton are averaging 35 themselves, 38 against, playing sides that have traditionally as well, again, scored well. Richmond 36 and GWS a staggering 55. They are ranked 4th in that facet. So it is a real key pillar stone. They're coming against North, who are one of the worst sides at defending against D50. Transition has caught them as well as centre clearance. These are 2 Carlton strengths. So before everyone gets talking into danger game, respect your opposition, I want to make it clear. I respect North. Clarkson is a GOAT, so he knows how to play. However, if you're a top 4 side, if I come on this show and start saying, oh, you've got to fear North, idiot. I might as well just say Carlton are bottom 5 and we just move on with our lives. That being said, though, it should be a really intriguing factor. It's a game that I'm really excited about seeing Vossi match up because he's against a really, really good coach who will set a plan. And North do what they do very well. Very tough tackling, top 5 in tackles this year. They're top 5 in the hardest side to get it inside 50. And they're also very rigid around clearance. They have really managed to lock that away. And it's going to be interesting because GWS is probably a really good game for them to showcase this. Purely because, right, purely because they genuinely, under Clarkson, play the system that we have seen from a lot of sides in the avenues of playing that extra around clearance. GWS did that incredibly well. Will Whitfield, Kelly, Cole, they got around it. And what we find here is that they genuinely float players through. Will Phillips comes through. Comden comes through in the ruck department. Zerha, they pinch hit him. They play someone out wide like Hugh Greenwood and Darcy Tucker and knit them in to try and make it awkward, to try and make it hard. And that's what GWS did. Creating that outnumber is integral. So that is got to be aware of. But with Kennedy expected to come back, Hewitt, a chance maybe of Mr. Sam Walsh, Carlton should be looking at this and going, it doesn't matter. We will negate that. So let's get straight in to the areas that both sides do well. This guy, you've got to keep an eye out for. You've got to. Now, I know people will probably go, oh, Pom, he's old. Todd Goldstein is absolutely ridiculous at what he does. Do you know what I mean? He's averaging just under 30 hit-outs already this season. He's very, very, very solid. He can ruck all day. He's top 6 for hit-outs already this year. Gets involved. He's particularly dangerous as well around that contest, going about 3 tackles a game. All of them under stoppage clearance. He's the battering ram. Him and LDU work at that coalface incredibly hard. And that is going to be a key area of concern because what they like to do, North, as like all Clarkson teams, is get control of that ball at the source. Clarkson bases his game plan on stopping source situations, which is why they've started to hemorrhage out a D50. The points there because that's where the top teams play. And that is a very hard thing to defend. We've talked at length how Carlton defend that. They're very high zone in the forward half of the ground. That kind of takes a step back from last year, forcing the large amount of turnovers. It's a real impressive stat that Carlton is so high, particularly in the forward 50 turnover. And that is going to be really integral to gain the ascendancy. Carlton needs to gain the ascendancy. And a real key pillar to counter what Todd Goldstein does is Doc floating through there, giving them a point of difference, a different bit of directness. Walsh will also bring that with his foot speed and how he likes to play. But this is going to be definitely an area because Todd Goldstein won't just affect you in the ruck. It's what he does around the ground as well. He'll definitely be able to mirror up and he'll definitely be a problem. So look out for him. Up next, Classy Sheasel. This kid here can play ball and I love Harry Sheasel. Spending a lot of time off halfback, which is ingenious from Clarkson, moving up to the high forwards. Number 1 for the juniors in intercepts per game. Number 1 for rebound 50s. Number 1 for uncontested possessions. He is a metronome of how they play football. And he is someone you've got to watch out for because they're looking to counterpunch. They're looking to counterpunch. 43 points scored from D50, 48 against. He's a big part of their launches. He looks to take the game on, and he's definitely someone that is going to hit the prime targets in the team that are going to hurt you. Now, does that mean you tag him? No, it doesn't, because what hasn't happened yet is what Nick Dacos did last year. No one has yet tried to lay some body on him, and the way to beat this guy, we're looking at JSOS. We're looking at players like that to become a problem. A bit like what Sard did the other week, what we saw this week with Whitfield, what we saw with Toby Green, right? It's not so much tagging. And I hate the tag because no one really plays a traditional tag now. It's giving them a problem that makes them change their game. Toby Green started to be a bit more defensive, which meant he couldn't go so aggressively into the contest because of Carlton's aerial dominance down there. That's what they've got to get down here. They've got to get Sheasel, ideally, coming into the midfield. That's what they want to do. We know that North floating through there. We've got to get him away from that hot zone. So if that is moving JSOS centrally, which what I might do, and bringing Charlie here to really body him, and in my opinion, can keep up with him, that could be a ploy. But he's a guy that if Carlton just leave unattended, we know what we're like against halfbacks. In at next, Bad Memories Larky. This guy here, 12 shots on goal, 12 goals. This guy is fearsome. Fearsome. Do you know what I mean? 12 shots, 12 goals, 100% success rate. Now, it's really important to know, right? Really important to know that a lot of these are very close. What they do, and this is what Clarkson's the master of. If Ross is the master of basics, Clarkson is the master of percentages. They really get him forced out deep. Now, traditionally, that would be Wheaterin, and I think Wheaterin will get first crack at him. They've got previous together. They have got previous. However, Young is the guy that genuinely takes the deepest we've seen in game. We've seen Voss like to deploy that and move Wheater in a little bit higher up to that centre-half back. Now, there's a reason for that. Gives space for McGovern to walk into. And this is going to be a key point because McGovern is going to be integral because the ball is 90% coming to this fella. So when it's coming to him, why teams have hurt them is teams have caught a lot of intercepts, right? Do you know what I mean? About 60% of their intercepts that have resulted in scores have been kicks towards this fella. That is your hot zone. Same with Carlton last year. It was obvious who we're targeting, easy to defend against. Carlton are going to have to, if he's isolated, make sure McGovern's in that position. And all Young then has to do, what we've seen success against Hawthorn was they body this guy and let the intercept come through. CJ did that quite a bit. That is the integral ingredient, but one to keep an eye out for. Now, let's look at the Blue Boys, the defensive twins we've talked about. How these guys rotate on their toes is going to be incredibly strong. Now, Clarkson likes to give defenders problems. It's something that he's always done. He really, really does focus on how his forward line moves. It's a very rigid system of trying to isolate one up top and then creating options short that will in turn allow you to dissect. Now, whoever gets Larky, he's going to have to stay to him and make sure they body him, make sure they're on him. Now, with Wheater in, he's got a really key job, right? And I'm not going to criticize Wheater in, but a staggering 85% plus of his passes go to Doc with that result in exits. He's got to change that up. It's got to go to Sardi. And you can see Carlton are trying to work on that. Old habits die hard, as Mick Jagger once said. But Carlton have got to look to run it through that first line because it's a real high forward press, kind of like seeing Poppy and Rioli for Hawks. So these two are really going to have an important job of who they distribute to. Now, you want Young distributing. He likes to distribute to Sard. You need Sard in this game. We need our smaller players to really be enacting getting them out. But these two have got a defensive job to do, but they're going to be integral in Carlton's defensive transition. And it's got to be about the way you beat Larkies. You've got to be brave and initiate the contact. I remember speaking to Kerner at a function, and he said that's his strength. He initiates it early and then leads them into trouble. Something he didn't do very well against Grimes the second time round, but he learned and then battered Griffin Logue, who won't be playing this game, incidentally. Best in the biz. This is Cripper's game, this. A lot has been talked about LDU and Simpkin. Should they return? This guy here is the master of the craft. And he's going to be, he's been in sensational form. Don't know what the media are talking about, right? Stick your ratings and ram them as high up your body as you can until you levitate. Because this guy here is a jet and integral to what Carlton do. I don't care about disposal efficiency. It's not his job, right? It's not his job. Cripper is a provider, a facilitator. And then what we need to do, the next layer for Cripps, is what we saw last year. Once Carlton get on top, we can start to shift this bloke around and he starts to damage you. Now, in this game here, if LDU does play, it's got to be Cripps' job straight away. And you've got to float Ed Kerner on there to give Cripps a rest. But this is a head-to-head matchup for Cripps because LDU loves a challenge. And Cripper and him going to head-to-head, we saw it last week with Green in the midfield. It's an incredible battle because if Cripps can get on top, we go halfway to win. And it's going to be really interesting how Cripps use the ball here. I'm looking for a lot of handballs inside, particularly if Messer Sam Walsh is back in the team. Man for all seasons, this guy has a big job. And this is what we pay him for. Definitely a guy that I am looking forward to seeing go head-to-head this week. Just under Mr. Goldstein in hitouts this year, playing one less game. So to be just there is impressive. Only playing 50% of the game, but this is where Carlton can really take some risks with Mike Pitterner. They can get him in there and he has to butcher it. He has to butcher and really go head-to-head with Goldstein, giving his midfield a chop out. He's got to make sure he blocks hard, make sure he looks into that, and make sure that he's creating space for Hewitt Kennedy to do their magical work with Cripps. It's going to be a really great battle, this, because I expect he'll play a little bit more because I think that's when TDK can come out. They like to throw Comden and Co through there in a bit of ruck work. That's where TDK is going to hurt him. And this is a big battle because he wants to make Goldstein after this follow TDK around. That is the ploy. TDK can get Todd Goldstein out in an open paddock. Game over like we saw with Nankervis. It's going to be a really interesting battle, that one is. And I'm looking forward to it. And putting on a show. This guy here, I know everyone's talking about Harry, and rightly so. He hasn't been in form. This guy here, this is a Charlie Curnow game. Charlie Curnow will be looking at the back line. He'll be looking at core and players like that and knowing that this game here is set up for a guy that can be incredibly mobile and do his best work running out of the 50. And I reckon here, Harry may kick a few snags. Charlie here is going to give him the run around because they play a very strong zonal system. Adelaide do, and North Melbourne do. And this guy likes running in between the zones. So I am super excited about seeing this guy on show. And mark my words, he'll have a big game. I'm expecting 10 score involvements minimum from this guy. Let's go over to the teams. And as usual, I've got force changes, but I haven't gone crazy per se. So the back line I'm going in with Mitch McGovern, Jacob Wheaterin and Nick Newman, pretty much unchanged. Adam Sard, Youngie and Big Doc there in the halfback flanks. Gone Walsh is my in. I'm going to start him on the wing. Fort Bean, I don't want him so much contested. I'm quite happy with Chera continuing his minutes and just downgrading this guy's minutes and pinch hitting him. On the wing, we need someone who's heavy running like Blake Acres. I don't think O'Brien's fit for purpose. I can't see anyone else. Carroll doesn't even play that position anymore in juniors. Binsey, maybe a shout. Bit new to his game, though. I think a bit of a risk just bringing him in just for one game when you know Acres is back next week. Cripper and my boy, Ollie Hollands. Saved by the skin of his teeth, Zach Fisher with a huge game here, particularly with knowing that transition can hurt North. You're going to be looking at your high half forwards, him being one of them. Harry Mackay next to him. Jay Sauce after his great game last week. Thank God we don't see this guy in the ruck anymore. Durden, Curnow and Motters up top. My followers, Kennedy, Mr. Pittener and Ed Curnow. And the bench, we've gone the return of George Hewitt. He'll be his second game. The one-arm bandit. He's going to be happy to have Kennedy back. Chera, Cowan, and TDK, with my sub this week being Mr. Jackson Binns. And I think it just gives you that outlet. Should Walsh need managed minutes, I don't see the point of putting him in the VFL. Put him in the seniors, give him 45, give him 50. And I know we don't like debuting off the bench, but I mean, he's going to be a 200 game than Binsey. Who cares? Predictions then. I think this will be quite comfortable. I think Carlton are going to, I think they've shown us the professional side of them. If they're professional and they stick to task at hand, this is going to be a 6-goal win. I'm going to tip Carlton 44 points. We're going to be happy. It's going to be an assured performance. It's going to be a mature performance. No disrespect to North, but there's levels to this. North haven't come across a good team yet, and we are a good team. And it's about time we started believing in ourselves and give the boys the kudos. I can't wait for this. I'll be doing the watch along with you. Have a wonderful Easter long weekend. And until next time, Pom out.